Welcome back to the Price of Business. I'm your host, Kipper Price, talking to you about you and your business. And going to spend some time with Nick Craig. He's with a company called Authentic Leadership, and that's authenticleadership.com. And it's a leadership consulting firm committed to leaders and organizations discovering their deeper purpose. And you wrote on this recently in the Harvard Business Journal. Welcome to the program. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your thoughts in this area.
Yeah, basically I've been working with senior executives, probably worked with about 3,000, everybody from top executives at GE to the Girl Scouts, from oil and gas. I was just in Houston working with a company at the Houstonian this week, really helping these guys and gals figure out what's the reason for why they're leading and what's the magic and how they step into it. So that's really what we've been doing, and discovering not just what it looks like, but how do you really live it and step into it. It's about how do you take the actions that are consistent with that.
Yeah, very, very good. By the way, the article is From Purpose to Impact. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, the bottom line is that if we look at all the things out there these days, everybody pretty much says the one thing you need to have clarity about is your purpose, whether you want to be a senior woman making it to the top, or whether it's going to reduce your chance of Alzheimer's by 2.5 times or live long. And the challenge is most people just don't have a clue what it is. And it's really about, for leaders especially, if you're going to lead people, if you don't have clarity about why you're doing it, well, what's the point?
Right, absolutely. And so a lot of people are just kind of shuffling through life. They have very low satisfaction. And I think you're absolutely right. I think purpose is one of the most neglected things out there. And I would say the vast majority of people, I mean vast, maybe 80% plus, have literally no idea what you're trying to do.
No, it's absolutely true. When we do this with executives and I say, okay, at the beginning, so who has clarity about what that is? Nobody raises their hand, or if they do it sheepishly, they say, well, maybe I might have an idea. And by the time we're through, they're so clear that if they don't have clarity about what it is, they really, really, really are missing out on something. So if we look at the Steve Jobs, the Mandelas, the Gandhis, the Churchills, all these people just had such a deep clarity about what their purpose is, and they were able to just drive that to create some outcomes that, everybody now says, wow, isn't that amazing?
Right. Yeah, I love that interview that Steve Jobs did. I think it may have been One Last Thing, that interview, where he talks about the fact that people are incredibly underestimating their power and their potential, and they really just sit on the sidelines. And all of us could be having a much more profound impact than we give ourselves credit for. He was not. This is the thing I don't think a lot of people realize. He was not a mathematical genius. He wasn't your typical tech star. He was a marketing genius, and was creative and didn't question his creativity. And that's absolutely huge.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, whether we look at what you're doing for a living or any of the other people who are really stepping into that part of themselves where they really are alive, you know the difference, and you can taste it and you can see it, and it's that intangible thing that makes the difference. And when someone walks on the stage or stands in front of you, you know that they've got it.
Yeah, absolutely. You can feel it. Absolutely, it's beyond charisma. It's just in Christianity they talk about rhema knowledge. You know that you know that you know. And they just demonstrate that.
No, it's the phrase I use is faith in faith. It's one thing to have faith, but it's another thing to have faith in faith, because then you really have to be fully in the game. And in some sense, that's what we're talking about for both you as an individual. I would say, independent of what religious background or any different or political orientation you have, every person on the planet truly wants to know what's the purpose for why they're here.
Yeah. Well, that concept of rhema knowledge, I'm sure, like the laws of reciprocity and sowing and reaping and good karma, I guarantee you every other religion has something like that.
Absolutely. And I think the challenge is, Kevin, is living it. And in some sense, what we've been spending a lot of our time doing is we see executives after year 1, year 2, year 3, and they've created these purpose to impact plans, is they really translate it into what does it look like to really live it in all the parts of their life, not just the workplace, but with their family, with their parents, with their community. And in some sense, how do you really step fully into the reason why you're here?
Yeah, no question about it. So where do you start? Where do you get people going, and how do you challenge C-level individuals?
The first place we start is there's probably 3 places purpose resides. One is some magical moment in your childhood that really has you step into and remember what was the reason and the sort of curiosity of who you are as a kid. And we've got wonderful examples. Another one is looking at the challenging times when you've really been humbled in your life, and what is it that gets you through to the other side? Is that invisible energy that is clarity about what your purpose is. And the third place that you really find it is some passion that you have that just doesn't make any sense, whether it's playing the violin or sailing or riding horses or whatever it is that just calls to you for no reason that makes any sense. And in those places is a metaphor or a way to think about what your reason for being here is that just really calls out to you. I have this woman who was, as a kid, decided to chase frogs in Scotland, and one day she took her all day, and at the end of the day she finally found it. And she remembered going home, and her purpose is to always find the frogs, and she's head of R&D. Well, she's the perfect person to be head of R&D.
Mm-hmm. And that's because?
She's always going to find the frogs, and if there's no frogs, she's going to find one anyway. She's going to keep going until she finds it, and that's the same thing as finding the invention and the solution that nobody's found before.
Yeah, it seems to me that there's a lot of mediocrity in education today, and that there's it's a big emphasis on the average, and it's very big on utility, but not on character traits. That I think, frankly, what you're talking about has a lot to do with character traits. Like resilience and patience and, things like that. Persistence, oh my goodness. Those things aren't fostered. They're not emphasized. We almost have a utilitarian approach to education. Is that among the reasons why people have a hard time identifying this, or what do you see it as?
Yeah, I think most people are always being told who they're supposed to be, that's somebody else's model, and those people are miserable as they are. And the challenge becomes is purpose is that magic that you are, that when you step into it, is your parents know instantly when you're in that place. And they can remember the times when you were. And the question is, yes, how do we help people step into that? And that's what's going to truly transform how you see your education and what you're trying to do with it. So when you see that when you see a great performance on stage.
Yeah. Do you think there's a lot of interest out there in creating young people that have those kind of attitudes? And our teachers, these individuals who sometimes have a very zero-sum approach. My daughter is a teacher, and she's got some really horrific stories about those in the classroom. With one of the biggest values being they get 3 months off a year. How is that an environment that's going to instill that kind of passion?
Yeah, I think that what's interesting is that we've done research and looked at people who are in the most horrific environments on the planet, whether it's in the worst teaching school or worst part of New York or whatever, and we found those people who have real clarity of purpose, and they transcend the bureaucracy. And they're the teachers that can get a kid to get 2 grade levels of development in 1 year. And so in some sense, how do we help more people do that? Because, the organizations, the systems, they're still broken. And the question is okay, so what? How do you step into that part of you that's a magic as a teacher? And I've got my kids have had some fabulous teachers, and each of them, when you really sit down with them, they are so clear about why they're there. And the other ones, it's just a job.
Yeah. Yeah, what you say is admirable, but, for every one teacher that you described, there's unfortunately hundreds that seem to be just getting along to the next paycheck.
And, the question is, I don't think any of them don't want to know what their deeper purpose is, as much as they just don't know where to find it. So in some sense, what we've done is we've really figured out predictably how you can figure out what that deeper purpose is for why you are. And my view is everybody's leading in their life. Everybody leads. It's not like, look, when you call a call center, and I don't know about you, but anytime I call, whatever I wanted to solve isn't like in the book anyplace.
Yeah.
Right? And that person has to lead in that moment and decide they're going to solve it for you anyway, even though there's nothing that they have that actually deals with the issue you're dealing with. And then they go solve it. And then you go, yes, I'll come back to this person. So my sense is that in the world we live today, everybody's leading. And the question is, are you really clear about what that thing is that you bring? Look, if I took you out of the system, what is it that people would miss 2 months later if I replaced you with someone with the same skills? Mm-hmm. That's purpose.
Nick Craig, he is the author of a great article over at the the Harvard Business Review called Purpose to Impact. I encourage people to check it out. He is with Authentic Leadership. That's AUTH leadership.com. And with just seconds left, a final call of action, a suggestion for CEOs listening?
Yeah, I think the final call of action is what would it be like if not only people understood the purpose of the organization, but every person had a clarity about what their purpose as a leader was and how it connected to the organization? What would you think would happen to your business results?
Yeah, I love it. And by the way, there's some great resources over there, including this article I've been referring to over at authleadership.com. Nick, thanks for being with us. I enjoyed it.
Kevin, thank you very much.
When we come back, much more for you. Do want to remind you, best content here. It shows up over there at usdatareview.com, and you're listening to The Price of Business.